but something notably absent from my life yesterday, Tej. Not one text during the Vikings Lions game. Were you a little scared that you predicted the Vikings and I predicted the Lions on Streamer Daily, or what were the overall vibes there? Were you just celebrating too hard?
Yeah, you, Stopsky, Sam, should definitely victory lap predicting the Lions to win that game. I was the only one on the show that predicted the Vikings to win. I just wanted to make sure we didn't get screenshotted and posted on the Vikings account if the Lions ended up winning the game. But yeah, I mean during the game, was very nervous, especially in the first half. So had my phone on do not disturb, and it was like charging like away from me, so I just wasn't using it at all because I was trying to focus. And then going into the fourth quarter, when I realized we were going to win the game, I just started firing off a bunch of tweets, started texting people. Definitely a very good moment there, and then got to read your Monday morning mashup this morning, recapping all of it again. So that was nice to relive the game there as well.
Tej, I love it. Once in the group chats, once we see you start popping off tweets, we're like, all right, we know he's feeling it. He is here. And I mean, from like you tweeted, from the number 2 overall pick to the number 1 seed in the NFC in 3 seasons. Like, absolutely incredible. Like, I'm not going to pretend like when the Lions hired Dan Campbell, I was like, oh, yes, everything is solved. Like, this is great. I'm not going to pretend that during some of the draft picks that I was like, these are the exact
Hmm.
moves that I think that a team should make. And just seeing everything overall, think about some of the conversations that we've had about the Lions over the last 3 years. Like, should they move on from Jared Goff? Do they need a new quarterback? Is Ben Johnson going to leave? What the heck are they going to do on defense? How many players are going to get injured? Do they have enough receivers? Is Jamison Williams a bust? What's going to go on without Aiden Hutchinson? The list of things that have led to this point is so, it's kind of like why I love this, right? Like, there is such a beautiful story around everything that they have done over the last few years. And really, before talking about the game, there's a ton to talk about in this game. It feels like it was the apotheosis of so much like through this entire season that we'll discuss. I don't know. I mean, the floor is yours. Like, you can lead the discussion in terms of if you want to go into the game, if you just want to, I don't know, reflect on the good old times, because we don't know how long it's going to last, but for now, you certainly get to celebrate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up so many good points there from, this whole process of the Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell era, where there's been a lot of doubt from, people like me, other people, in this space talking about some of the moves that the Lions have made. And you start from the very beginning where you hire Dan Campbell, and you don't know how someone without play calling experience is going to do. As the head coach, where he might not be giving you an advantage on either side of the ball very early. You realize like he's going to be very aggressive on fourth down. He's going to get the team to play really hard. So you can start to see that piece fall into place. And then they switch from Anthony Lynn to Ben Johnson, midway through the first season of the Dan Campbell era. And you start to see that as well, where like Ben Johnson has a lot of juice as a play caller, and some of those pieces start to fall into place. And then also had doubts about Jared Goff, and he's just continually improved in this offense each and every year. We've talked about on this show, like how often he is able to handle the blitz and handle pressure a lot better than usual, how he's able to move outside the pocket and make some plays more than what he was doing, at the beginning of the year. And then some of the additional pieces just around those main pieces where it's like Jameer Gibbs, was like considered a reach at 12 overall. You usually don't want to take a running back that high, but like he is such a good rusher at this point with the Lions, and such a good receiving back too, that he's able to make a difference. Jamison Williams, like most receivers who are, that lack production the first 2 years in the league, like usually don't have a year 3 breakout, but like he's more an exception there as well. And then on the defense, you just have so many guys that keep stepping up as well. So just like overall, this Lions team just keeps like breaking through their expectations and succeeding at the next level. And I think that's what's made it really special to watch these past couple of years.
They are the defining team of the Stats and Steam era. AJ, it's been awesome just talking about them for a full 2 years now, just seeing the evolutions on offense, whether it's the layers that they're adding on in terms of concepts. I'm glad that you mentioned, Jared Goff continuing to improve. I mean, some of the stuff on defense, particularly against the Vikings, I think I don't know if that's where you want to start for the Vikings Lions game, but it feels like when I was watching that, I couldn't wait to get my hands on the film and even just going through it a little bit. today. I can't wait to watch it again, just because like when I watch a film and it's like, oh my gosh, like part of it is obviously the plan, part of it is the execution of the players, part of it is can you make the offense uncomfortable, part of it is obviously getting some variants to fall in your direction. And we've talked a lot about Aaron Glenn as the Lions defensive coordinator this year being in a position to say, look, we're going to play a lot of man coverage. We're going to blitz you. If you miss like 2 or 3 opportunities, our offense is going to be able to shut the door. And now the Lions defense did way more than that. It wasn't just, hey, you're going to miss one throw like Hawkinson on the right side. You're going to miss a throw in the seam, and hey, we have won the game. Obviously, you make 4 trips to the red zone in the first half. You end up with 2 field goals, 2 turnovers on downs. That is really tough. I do think the Vikings overall, they did just there were points on the table that they unfortunately could not have. But from a plan perspective, I like that the Lions defense kind of early on, when you got into those kind of 2 receiver sets, they were playing really heavy up front. They had cornerbacks pressed up on the outside. They had safeties over the top, so they could be aggressive in the receivers' faces. You're disrupting releases and everything, but those guys can play comfortable with safeties over the top. And then all those red zone trips, you can look at some of those clips certainly and say, hey, if Darnold threw a better ball, if Darnold cut it loose a little bit earlier in 1 or 2 situations, it would have ended up as touchdowns. But trusting your guys, I mean, Tej, like what, like Amik Robertson, we need to build a statue. Like, that was incredible to see that game. Just to think that he was. We talked about him in the preseason preview. He was their nickel corner, and for him to
Mhm.
get the Justin Jefferson assignment going into this game, it is just so cool. And it's not like, hey, he was singled up on him and strictly just man coverage the entire time. Now, I will say it was more times than I think that I was expecting going back on the film. There were certainly times where they find a way to get a hard double or a soft double or just a safety over the top in some sort of way. But there are snaps where if like Robertson does not guard Justin Jefferson really well, is going to be a problem. And he showed time and time over again just a real positive coverage day from him.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, when you start with Amik Robertson in this game, who was the player on the Lions defense that deserved the game ball, you can see that he's someone who they mentioned this in the broadcast, like has been playing Justin Jefferson since high school, lined up against him in college, and now lining up against him in the NFL in this second Lions Vikings matchup. So he's had a lot of experience going up against Justin Jefferson, and we saw a lot of that in this game where Jefferson was targeted 10 times and only 4 of those were successful targets. So like that's much lower than the rate of successful targets for Justin Jefferson on average. And a lot of it was on Sam Darnold for missing some throws, especially in the red zone where Justin Jefferson could have had a touchdown or 2. But some of it was also just Robertson's defense on Jefferson throughout the game and how he was able to not just allow explosives to happen while on him. And I think that it also goes to Aaron Glenn for how good of a job he did as a game planner, in this matchup where, the Lions put a season high 15 pressures on Sam Darnold. They blitzed him a lot, and they really just locked down in the red zone and were forcing field goals and turnovers on downs where the Vikings ended up running 11 plays in goal to go situations. They gained 5 yards total on those plays and ended up with 6 points, where 2 of those drives ended with no points and 2 of them ended with field goals. So it was just a very sound effort by this Lions defense to play really well with Robertson covering Jefferson, Alex Anzalone back in the lineup and playing almost every snap in this game and really just beefing up that linebacker group and then Aaron Glenn's overall game plan.
I mean, Alex Anzalone, he was real fun to watch in coverage. I think going into this, they were saying like, oh, we might be on a snap count or something like that. Seeing him pass routes off, seeing him cut routes off, seeing him be just an add-on in the pass rush over and over and over is really cool. And I think when Hutchinson went down, the first question was, what is going to happen to this pass rush? Then you also lose Aleem McNeil. Of course, you get to add in Zadarius Smith, and now you're losing guys on the back. And Terran Arnold, of course, was injured in this game. It sounds like he's going to try his best to come back in the Lions divisional round game. But for them to generate that much pressure, for Glenn to confidently say, you know what, I'm just going to keep blitzing. Like there's just no hesitation from him at all. I will say you had some really nice snaps. You get like cover 4 going in, kind of sprinkled in here and there. Obviously some spot drop zones. So it did feel like Glenn had a varied coverage menu, which I really like seeing that. It feels like he
Mhm.
was trying to present different problems. And look, I think that O'Connell got him on some calls, like 100%. It just didn't end up as a completion. And I can't even say, oh, he actually got him on the call, because also part of drawing up, your routes on the whiteboard is, well, what is your pass protection going to be when the Lions send an extra guy? And so if Aaron Glenn is comfortable saying, look, a guy is going to be a little bit open. It's going to be a tight window. If you miss him twice, and then the next two times we're able to generate pressure, now you're 0 for 4 in those situations, and now you were just done. That was just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And we will talk about coordinators of the year. So I think that's what I'll close on the Lions defense. Flipping it over to the other side of the ball, Tish, it feels like if you think about the Lions having kind of an off day, this is sort of what it was a little bit in that first half, and they still end up dropping 31 points. So I think impressive by Ben Johnson later in the game to just have that kind of more middle of the field attacking throws where we talk about that all the time. I think Jared Goff being really comfortable with a second level defender for the Vikings coming on a blitz and Goff taking like the drop back and being like, I've seen this, multiple times in my time as a Lion. I'm just going to throw it to the coverage kind of beater in that situation. He was comfortable there. Jahmyr Gibbs just ridiculous. Like I don't have any other words to say about that. I will say though, we can't allow teams to throw swings to Andrew Van Ginkel's side anymore. Like it's unconstitutional. You can't do it. You just can't do it. Even if you have everything drawn up, even if it's nice and fancy, just leave Van Ginkel alone. Oh, although the Lions had a really nice job where once kind of Gibbs gets up in the seam and you give him a little shake, like that was really, really nice. Lions have done that all the time. They do a really smart job a lot of times on fourth downs, finding ways to isolate Gibbs as a running back out of the backfield. And you just can't cover him in that short of a space when Goff is playing on time there. What do you got here for the Lions offense against the Vikings defense?
I agree with everything you said there, where there are really two halves to this game that were perfectly split at halftime. In the first half, like Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard, they were just wreaking a lot of havoc on Jared Goff on this Lions offensive line that had a down day from what they usually are from a pass blocking perspective. And the Lions just had a lot of trouble running the ball, especially in the first half, where they punted two times in the first half through an interception, turned it over on downs, and had the one touchdown. And then the one field goal where they got to start at the -40 because of the kick that went out of bounds. But like they were struggling running the ball. Craig Reynolds was actually doing a little bit better running between the tackles than Gibbs was. Gibbs had the explosive touchdown, but then Ben Johnson seemed to have like a I understand it now moment in the second half where they come out and do throw that interception early in the second half because they were backed up with the play action pass. But then after that, it goes touchdown, 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 where they just were accessing the middle of the field really well in this game. And that's kind of been the story of the Lions offense under Ben Johnson versus the Vikings defense under Brian Flores is the Lions really love to attack that middle of the field. In the first game against the Vikings in week 7, this year the Lions threw 11 times over the middle of the field for plus 14 EPA. And then in this game, Jared Goff only had 2 incompletions in the middle of the field past the line of scrimmage, where he threw the interception that was a 50 air yard throw, but also just one other incompletion, and the rest he was just able to really pick apart the defense, because of the way that Brian Flores was deploying the blitz in the second half, and that turned out to be huge for the Lions to be able to put up as many points as they did in the second half.
I think I would love for these teams to meet for a third time. That would mean that all of the home teams, other than the Rams, win. We'll talk about the playoff picture again a little bit later. It would be fun to see again because, Flores, I think he's tried to add a little bit more man coverage, particularly the way that they dealt with the Packers. But, the Lions are a different animal than the Packers. And there were some times in this game where you could see that Goff was kind of like killing a play out of a specific look, and then the Vikings were doing their job to also kind of flip out to another extreme look. So, and some of those times, the Lions just totally got them. I thought so. I wonder how much of those kind of off coverage rushes, like, are we going to see any more of those if they play again? I think that is it man coverage? Because I don't even know. Like, I'm not really sure what the answer is overall. I don't think anyone's really solved the answer for what the Lions are, except for if you can get some of the red zone variants. Obviously, they lost that game to the
Mm-hmm.
Buccaneers, but they just had a really rough day in the red zone. At this point, I'm super satisfied with the state of the Lions getting the 1 seed and the Chiefs getting the 1 seed. Those are the two best teams in the NFL. I think they've shown it over and over again now, even in situations where, look, we've tried to poke all the holes that we can in this team, right? We've talked about the defense. We've talked about Goff under pressure. We've talked about, secondary receivers. We've talked about, are you going to be able to hang on the back end? And Detroit just totally, totally proved it to us. So I think that's so fun for us as we think about them Hopefully, all those guys just get healthy. I know that like Zeitler, he was also injured. I'm not sure like anything on his status. He was walking around, so hopefully he's able to play. But Tay